Out of Tune by D.B. Goodin. Digital narration performed by multiple digital voices. Roxanne held fast, tense as a tritone, refusing to relax until the song ended. The worn, thin mattress jabbed a spring into her thigh, a preferable sensation to the numbness she'd experienced sitting on her plastic desk chair. Tabby sat cross-legged against the headboard, a chipped acoustic guitar balanced on her lap, fingers spidering across the fretboard. Every so often, the old instrument spat out a strangled note, and Tabby grinned as if she had done it on purpose. The music, if you could call it that, wasn't just loud. It was defiant. In the rest of the house, the only sounds were the gentle purr of the heather, the muffled hum of the fridge, and the white noise perfection of the service robots as they glided between rooms. Tabby's off-key chords were an act of open warfare. Roxanne's eyes were drawn to the doorway. An errant hallway bot hovered just outside, blue indicator lights flashing in a way that suggested it was considering fleeing the scene. It lingered for the briefest of moments, then whirred away. Even the machines seemed to know better than to pick a fight with Tabby.
"You're staring again, Rox,"
Tabby said, plucking a single string with deliberate slowness. The sound was thin, but Roxanne shuddered as the sound reverberated through her bones.
"Either get me a drink or tell me what I'm doing wrong."
"I'm just listening,"
Roxanne lied. She was watching too, every twitch of Tabby's hand, every hairline crack in the battered guitar. Watching because someday, maybe, she'd want to try, but not while Tabby was around. Tabby didn't judge, but she had a way of making you feel like you'd broken something valuable just by picking it up wrong.
"You're not supposed to listen to humans, you know,"
Tabby said, strumming a discordant chord for emphasis.
"Not in this house. We are strictly a playlist family."
"Dad's playlist,"
Roxanne said, and made it sound like a disease. Tabby snorted.
"Dad's idea of rebellion is listening to a different genre every night. Classic rock on Mondays, alternative on Tuesdays, like that's an alternative to anything."
She shook her head, letting a strand of blue-dyed hair fall across her eyes.
"He'd die if he heard what this thing sounds like unplugged."
Roxanne wondered if that was true. She pictured her father's face, tired, lined, only animated when arguing with the hollow news. She could almost hear him now. Why would you bother with a real instrument? The system can play it better than you, and it never goes out of tune. Maybe that was the point, she thought. Maybe going out of tune was the whole reason Tabby played. Another robot passed in the hallway, this one tall and white with a glassy oval face. Its chest display read sanitation mode, which was a lie, since Tabby's room was a landfill of dirty laundry, guitar strings, and crumpled lyric sheets. The robot paused, scanned the room, and moved on. It left a faint ozone tang in the air. Tabby lowered the guitar, her hand still resting on the strings to silence the last ugly echo.
"You know, Mom used to play, not like this. She was better."
The pause stretched out, daring Roxanne to speak. Roxanne didn't take the bait. If she said anything, it would be about how she remembered Mom's singing. The house AI had wiped the home's audio history after Mom's first hospitalization for family wellness. Now her mother's voice was just a thin ghost, drowned out by the clinical hum of the automated systems. She was still pissed at her father for letting soulless machines control her home. Tabby shrugged, eyes fixed on the floor.
"Anyway, want to try?"
Roxanne shook her head.
"My hands are too small."
"Bullshit,"
Tabby said, but her voice was gentle. She reached over, taking Roxanne's hand and placing it on the fretboard.
"Look, I'll show you the easy way. Don't worry if it hurts."
It hurt. The string felt like barbed wire under Roxanne's fingers, and when she tried to press down, the note wheezed out like an injured animal. Tabby grinned wider.
"Perfect,"
she said.
"Now play it again."
Roxanne played it again, worse if that was possible.
"Even better,"
Tabby said, dropping her own hand onto the neck, trapping both their hands together.
"See? This is what they don't want you to learn. If you mess up a solo, the system can't fix it for you. Only you can, or you just keep playing, and everyone acts like you did it on purpose."
Roxanne blinked. The room was too bright. The ceiling lights were tuned to focus mode by the AI, but it made every detail sharp. the paint peeling around the window, Tabby's chipped black nail polish, the dust below the strings. Tabby's voice cut through all of it.
Never let the machines tell you you're doing it wrong. That's how they win.
A notification tone sounded from Roxanne's wristband, a haptic pulse, 3 quick beats. It was supposed to be for wellness reminders, but she'd hacked it to alert her every time the house AI updated a behavior log. That meant the bots were watching this room. Tabby never noticed, or pretended not to. Roxanne always noticed. The next time a robot paused at the door, Roxanne stared right back, willing it to leave. It did, and for a moment, she almost felt proud. Then Tabby started thrashing at the guitar with renewed vigor, filling the house with raw, jagged sound. The noise was ugly, but it was alive. Roxanne wished she could be that brave. Tabby stopped and leaned back, a line of sweat shining at her hairline.
Someday,
She said.
you'll figure out what's worth getting in trouble for.
Roxanne looked at her hand, at the indented lines where the strings had pressed into her fingers.
What if I don't?
Tabby laughed.
Then you'll become one of them.
She nodded at the hallway where a shadow drifted past, another robot, maybe the same one as before. Roxanne said nothing, but when Tabby started playing again, she listened with everything she had. The next time Tabby's playing skidded off into silence, the interruption wasn't a robot, it was their mother. Mara Eaton entered the bedroom with her usual stealth, a mug in each hand and her pressed flower pendant bobbing against the scoop of her faded sweater. There was a smell that followed her, something floral and complicated, a ghost of real plants. It clashed with the house's baseline aroma, filtered air and the distant tang of plastic wrap. "Ladies," Mara said, her voice cutting through the remains of Tabby's last chord.
Is this band open to new members, or do I need an audition?
Tabby brightened.
We were just forming a punk trio. I call lead, Rox on rhythm, and you on...
She trailed off, eyeing the mugs.
Tea? Peppermint for you,
Mara said, passing one across. The mug was ancient, probably handmade, with chips at the rim where a robot dishwasher had given up and tossed it back in the cabinet.
And for Rox, the honey stuff you like.
Roxanne accepted her mug, scalded her palm, and tried not to look as grateful as she felt. Mara settled onto the bed, the old mattress groaning beneath her weight, an honest sound, not the silent hover of a cleaning bot. She looped her arm around Tabby's shoulders, drawing her close, and the two of them became a single tangle of limbs and matching tiredness. For a minute, nobody spoke. Mara's gaze drifted to Roxanne.
What happened to your hand?
Tabby answered before Roxanne could.
Teaching her the basics. We're early. Next week, we move to power chords and stage diving.
Mara's eyes twinkled.
Stage diving, maybe let's keep the ER visits under 2 this year.
0.
Roxanne said. Mara nodded agreement.
A mother can hope.
She took a sip from her mug, closed her eyes, and let out a soft, unguarded sigh. The sound filled the room. No, it filled the house, pushing out all the stale air and machine whirs and making space for something warmer. Roxanne watched her mother's face, hunting for the first signs of tiredness. Mara's illness was dormant most days, but was somewhere under the surface, and Roxanne was waiting to catch her before she crashed. Tonight, Mara looked better than usual. Hair pulled back, but not yet limp, her smile a little crooked, but real. Tabby twisted the pendant on Mara's necklace between thumb and forefinger.
You smell like the backyard, she said. Thanks to the 2 hours I spent out there pulling weeds.
Mara flexed her fingers, palms up, revealing a dusting of dirt that no robot could erase.
The garden system staged a coup again.
You need more calcium nitrate,
Roxanne said. She'd heard her mother say it to the system often enough.
That's what the system says,
Mara replied, lowering her voice to a mock robot register.
Administer nutrients per diagnostic schedule, no deviation.
She grinned.
If I listened every time, the backyard would be a parking lot.
Tabby giggled. It was a silly, gasping laugh, nothing like her usual dry snort. Roxanne watched her mother's face and the micro wrinkles at the corners of Mara's eyes. She envied Tabby's easy way with Mara, how they shared the same jokes and memories, like there was a secret language only older siblings learned. Mara always included Roxanne, but sometimes she felt like a guest in her own family. Mara sipped again.
So what did I miss besides musical genius? Robot drama,
Tabby said.
hallways reporting us for excessive noise.
Let it try, Mara said, setting her mug aside.
If they can't handle a little music, they'll have a hard time in this family.
The words made Roxanne warm in a place she hadn't realized was cold. The three of them sat in a row on the bed, passing the guitar back and forth, fingers lingering on the chords as the notes faded. Mara demonstrated an old folk tune, her voice so soft it barely registered. Tabby tried to harmonize, missed, and dissolved into laughter. Roxanne didn't sing at all, but she mouthed the words, committing every bit to memory. She knew already that nothing outside this room would ever compare. Later that night, after the guitars and voices faded and the sounds of robots took over, Roxanne leaned into her mother's side. Mara's sweater was scratchy and smelled faintly of lemon and something more subtle, maybe the pressed flower inside the pendant. Mara leaned against Roxanne and began to drift off. A heavy arm kept the girls together. Tabby caught Roxanne's eye and grinned as if to say, "See? Worth it." Roxanne smiled back, and for the first time all evening it didn't feel like pretending. Mara left the room, swaying a little, promising she'd be back with cookies.
Come on, you're not getting out of this,
Tabby said, shoving the battered guitar into Roxanne's lap.
I want to hear you make it scream.
Roxanne hesitated. The instrument felt heavy, dense, and unwieldy, nothing like the thin plastic keys on her tablet at school. The grain of the wood was rough against her skin, worn shiny at the places where Tabby's hands had smoothed it down over years. She tried to remember what Tabby had done. Something about finger placement, thumb behind the neck, keeping her wrist loose. Tabby huffed and scooted closer, her knee pressing hard against Roxanne's.
Here,
she said, guiding Roxanne's left hand into position, her fingers warm and certain.
You want to make the strings touch the metal. Don't let them buzz against the wood. It's supposed to hurt.
That's stupid,
Roxanne said, but she tried it anyway, flexing her hand the way Tabby showed her. The tips of her fingers screamed protest.
Exactly,
Tabby grinned.
The system wants you comfortable. People are supposed to hurt a little.
Roxanne pressed down until the pain finally registered. A bright, hot point. When she strummed, the chord didn't sound like much, just a flat, hesitant noise, but Tabby whooped anyway, as if she'd set the house on fire.
Again,
Tabby said.
But louder.
Roxanne obliged, digging the pick in with awkward, frantic energy. The sound that erupted was ugly, yes, but also raw and real nothing like the smooth, perfect recordings in the house's archive. The noise bounced off the walls, vibrated the floor, and sent every sensor in the home into panic mode. Tabby leaned back, nodding in approval.
That's the spirit. You've got expert hands for this, like Mom.
She was a singer,
Roxanne said.
That's not hands.
Tabby shook her head.
She played too. You just don't remember. They erased all her old recordings. For your protection.
She pulled a face, then plucked the guitar from Roxanne's lap and showed her a different chord, one that looked impossible for Roxanne's fingers to reach.
But I remember, and now you will too.
They practiced. The tips of Roxanne's fingers bloomed into fresh pain with every attempt, but she kept going, compelled by some stubborn thread of pride. Each time Tabby played a line, Roxanne watched and mirrored, falling further behind with every chord change but never dropping out. The music wasn't good, but it was theirs. They were halfway through a mangled version of Smells Like Teen Spirit when the household bot rolled up to the open door. This one was old, the paint scratched and stickers half peeled from its base. Its sensors glowed a cautious blue. It chirped.
Irregular noise pattern detected. Is help required?
Nope,
Tabby replied, voice sweet as antifreeze.
Human error. Everything's fine.
The bot hesitated, as if considering escalation. Roxanne knew from bitter experience that if you ignored it, it would default to the observe and report protocol. She snapped her eyes to it anyway, automatic, defensive. Then she did her scan, door, corners, faces. Nothing but the bot and Tabby's amused grin. The adrenaline faded, leaving only the echo of the robot's interruption. Tabby nudged her.
You do that every time, the scan.
So,
Roxanne said, cheeks burning.
Nothing.
Tabby said softer.
It's good. Means you're awake.
Awake.
Roxanne repeated. The word felt dangerous, as if saying it would summon all the machines in the house. Tabby strummed again, softer this time.
Systems want you obedient, but music sets you free. That's what Mom used to say. She'd play at night, even when the bots tried to reset or access. Sometimes I'd sneak out and listen from the stairs.
She eyed Roxanne, her gaze too direct.
I think she'd like you playing.
Roxanne looked down at her aching hands, the angry red lines where the strings had bitten deep. She couldn't imagine ever getting good at this, but she could already imagine teaching it to someone else someday, maybe, if the house ever let her have friends over.
Fine.
She said, grabbing the guitar back.
But you're tuning it next time. It sounds like a cat in a blender.
Tabby's laughter was loud enough to register as another irregular noise pattern, and the bot in the hallway flickered before retreating. Roxanne watched it go, then did her 3-beat scan one more time for safety. This time the room felt different. The guitar's warmth lingered on her skin, the bed springs sighed, recalling Mara's closeness, and Tabby's joyful sounds still echoed around her. For now, the house was theirs, and Roxanne intended to keep it that way, even if it meant every human sound was a little out of tune. Hospitals smelled like regret and disinfectant. At least that's how Roxanne cataloged them. Every sharp note of chemical sanitizer overlaying the subtler decay of human skin, the sweet rot undercurrent that even the air exchangers couldn't erase. She'd been here enough. Her mother's illness was a recurring event. 16 was old enough to know the cycle, but the room always found ways to surprise her. She hovered in the middle of the whitewashed box, stuck between two opposing gravitational fields. At the foot of the bed, Marcus Eaton stood with his hands jammed into the pockets of a company-branded jacket, lips drawn tight and colorless. On the far side, Tabby clung to the bed rail with the doggedness of a storm survivor, her blue hair a shocking streak against the bland backdrop. Both parents present, plus Tabby, the full cast, for what it was worth. Mara Eaton was the only one who looked at home here, and she was dying. Last night's dizziness turned into today's nightmare. A new shape entered the room, a medical robot on silent wheels. Roxanne's gut twisted at the sight of it. Metal spine, carded instrument rack, that cartoon-carrying LED face. The bot pulled up to the bedside and announced,
Initiating patient monitoring protocol.
with the sing-song sweetness of a children's show host. Tabby bared her teeth, like a feral cat warning off a hand that's already been scratched. She popped the bed's AV plug, severing the cable with a sharp twist, and the bot stuttered, recalibrating for a hardwired connection. It took her all of 5 seconds to disable the port again, and by then Marcus was already raising his voice.
Jesus, Tabitha, just let it run. The nurse said it's critical for monitoring hypoxia.
I'm not letting a machine announce our mother's death on a fucking display.
Tabby replied, voice so low and steady that even the robot paused.
She deserves better than some algorithm's best guess.
The tension rolled across Roxanne, electric, immediate, and terrifying. Her body moved before her mind. She did her scan. Door, corners, faces. No cameras, at least not visible. Only the bot's array, which she clocked automatically. Marcus's eyes bulged in a display of genuine fear. Tabby's gaze stayed locked on Mara, as if staring alone could keep her heart going. Mara somehow managed a laugh, a frail bubble in her hollowed-out chest. I'm here, you know, not auditioning for ghosts just yet. The sisters both snapped to attention. Tabby found Mara's hand and gripped it, careful not to disrupt the network of IV lines and sticky leads. Roxanne slipped to the head of the bed, found a bare wrist, and pressed 2 fingers gently against her mother's papery skin.
Pulse is okay.
Roxanne said, which wasn't true, but the words seemed to please Mara. She smiled, eyes creasing with that particular kindness only the dying bother to show. Roxanne measured her breath's longer gaps now, deeper draws that rattled the machines even before they signaled a trend. Marcus tried again.
The robot will only help. We want you comfortable, Mare. It's not a replacement.
A replacement? Mara asked. The bot blinked yellow for a few seconds, waiting for compliance, then rolled backward to observe, logging everything to the hospital mainframe. Roxanne found herself silently rooting for Tabby, who took the opportunity to slide the AV cable under the blanket, out of the bot's reach. In the pause, Marcus circled to the window, as if the city view might offer escape. He looked smaller in this light, the corporate armor thin and poorly tailored.
I'll go check in with the doctors,
he muttered, and ghosted out the door. Tabby watched him leave, then exhaled a shaky laugh.
He'll have them reset her chart, pretend he can debug a body like an old coffee maker. Don't,
Mara said, a gentle reprimand with no heat behind it. Tabby wilted.
Sorry, I just hate the way he lets them push you around.
They don't push, Mara said.
Can I get you anything?
Roxanne asked, desperate for something tangible to do.
Just you,
Mara said, and patted the mattress. Roxanne perched herself at the edge, careful not to jostle the tubes. Tabby leaned in from the other side, close enough that the tips of their noses almost touched. For a moment, all three were bundled together, the old intimacy of shared beds and midnight fevers. Mara looked up at the ceiling, as if the cracks in the plaster could point her toward heaven, or at least a marginally less exhausting afterlife.
You girls will have to look out for each other, she said. Your father's not bad, just lost, and the world's going to get stranger before it gets better.
Tabby's laugh was sharp.
Says the woman dying in a room full of robots.
Mara smiled again, weak but undefeated.
The robots are fine, it's the people I worry about.
She turned her face toward Roxanne, eyes boring through all pretense.
Can you get my necklace, honey?
The request surprised Roxanne.
Now?
Mara nodded, chin barely moving. Please. She'd seen the necklace every day for as long as she could remember, a gold chain with a small oval pendant, resin encased with pressed wildflowers, no two alike. It was always there, at the breakfast table, in the garden, even in old pictures from when Mom was healthy and laughing in Dad's arms. Roxanne unclasped it, fingers fumbling, then laid it on her mother's chest.
Not for me,
Mara said, and tapped two thin fingers against Roxanne's collarbone.
For you.
Roxanne hesitated.
But it's yours.
It was,
Mara said, and let her eyes flutter shut for a second.
Now it's for keeping things real.
She smiled again, a lazy, slow thing.
When everything gets too loud, too perfect, just remember this moment.
Tabby pressed her lips into a line, blinking rapidly.
Mom, you're not...
Mara reached up, a surprising burst of strength, and pulled both daughters down to her face level.
I love you more than anything.
She waited for each of them to meet her gaze, as if memorizing the color of their irises for some afterlife ID check.
Even when you're impossible. Especially then,
Tabby said, voice breaking. Roxanne felt the pendant's chill against her skin and shivered, though the room was warm. A sharp alarm cut the moment. The monitors jumped from steady green to a scatter plot of red, and the bot rolled forward, prepping a set of emergency subroutines. Medical staff swarmed in, voices blending into a single urgent monotone. Marcus appeared at the door, his face already falling into lines of controlled panic.
No heroic measures,
he said in a shaky tone.
You heard the man. Exit the room immediately,
the robot said as it ushered the nurses out of the room. Roxanne pressed flat against the wall, clutching the pressed flower pendant like it was a life preserver. Tabby ran to her mother's side, but the robot pushed her away.
There is nothing you can do. Back off.
That's my mother, you fucking bot,
Tabby said as she punched the bot. Tabby let out a screech so loud Roxanne flinched.
Tabby, stop,
Marcus said. Tabby backed up until she was against the wall, clenching her wounded hand. They waited as the robot's sing-song voice now read out Mara's vital stats to the med team. Even the air exchangers seemed to hush in anticipation. After a minute, a doctor stepped out and said something too quietly to hear. Marcus slumped, and Tabby slid to the floor, her good hand covering her face as she wept. Roxanne looked down at the necklace, the tiny petals frozen forever in a bubble of resin. She looped it around her neck, feeling the weight settle in a spot just above her heart. The room was silent, sterile, a monument to loss. She did her 3-beat scan. Door, corners, faces. No threats, No intruders. Just family broken and incomplete. She closed her eyes, holding back tears, but they came anyway. Roxanne dropped her backpack at the door and froze. She couldn't believe it had been 2 months since her mother's passing. The experience was still too raw. She reached up and touched the pendant at her neck, half expecting it to be warm from her mother's pulse. Instead, it was cold, slick with residual anxiety and sweat. Activity from the kitchen broke her from dark thoughts. As she entered, a trio of bots moved in perfect interlocking choreography, one prepping vegetables, stirring something in a pot on the stovetop, and cleaning up simultaneously. Marcus supervised with the intensity of a factory manager, not a father, and when he finally spoke, it was to the robot.
Override recipe, less salt, more.
He paused, and for a moment Roxanne thought he might actually look at her.
More of the rosemary.
He finished. The bot chirped compliance. Tabby swept in from the hallway, trailing chaos behind her. She looked different, a little harder, a little more deliberate, blue hair faded to the color of forgotten pool water. She wore the same army jacket as always, the patches almost obliterated by years of use. She ignored Marcus, went straight to the fridge, and fished out a can of beer that probably wasn't meant for anyone under 30. When the fridge chided her, she flipped it off with a precise, contemptuous motion. Marcus didn't flinch.
You know the rules.
Tabby cracked the can and took a swig.
I know which ones matter.
An awkward silence followed, punctuated by the rhythm of the bots and the hum of the exhaust fan. Tabby's gaze landed on the pendant, and for a split second, something in her face softened.
Come here, let me see it,
she said. Roxanne stepped over, careful not to disrupt the bots. Tabby traced the resin oval with her thumb, then let her hand drop.
You're going to wear that forever, aren't you?
Roxanne nodded.
Good,
Tabby said.
That way you'll never forget how pissed she'd be about all this.
She jerked her head toward the living room, where the house system had queued up a playlist of Mara's old favorites, though in a perfectly suitable volume for the hour and a carefully calibrated order. Roxanne watched Tabby's knuckles whiten around the can. Marcus cleared his throat.
I've programmed the house to follow your mother's routines,
he announced as if unveiling a great gift.
There's a meal rotation. I've enabled the personalized wake-up sequence. It even cycles through her old voice messages for the alarms.
Tabby let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a choke.
So you turned her into a fucking ghost. Congratulations.
I did it for you, for both of you. Continuity is important.
It's not continuity, it's plagiarism.
Tabby set the beer down so hard it foamed over, then stalked off. Roxanne heard her boots thudding up the stairs, a sound that felt more alive than the entire house combined. Roxanne lingered in the kitchen, watching Marcus as he orchestrated the bots. He caught her looking and softened his tone.
She was the best of us,
he said, not quite meeting her eye.
This is all I know how to do.
Roxanne nodded, though she doubted he saw it. She slipped out, following the sound of Tabby's chaos. The shared bedroom was an explosion of laundry, tangled sheets, and guitar strings. Tabby was hunched over a duffel bag, shoving in clothes without any regard for folding. She muttered to herself, the same refrain over and over.
He's erasing her by replacing her.
A cleaning bot rolled in, optimistic and oblivious, and Tabby kicked it square in the sensor array. It whined.
Obstacle detected.
Then retreated, dragging a trail of laundry in its wake. Roxanne shut the door, careful to lock it. She watched as Tabby zipped the bag, then yanked open the closet for her guitar case.
Are you leaving?
Roxanne asked. Tabby stopped, guitar half slung over one shoulder.
Would you blame me if I did?
Roxanne looked at the duffel, then at the riot of color on Tabby's jacket.
No, but you shouldn't.
Tabby's eyes narrowed, measuring the truth of her words.
I'm not leaving you. If I go, you're coming too.
That landed like an electrical surge. Roxanne's heart rate spiked. She tried to picture what going looked like, but the future had always ended at the property line, or maybe at the perimeter of her own anxiety.
I can't leave Dad alone,
She said, voice smaller than she intended.
He's not alone,
Tabby said, gesturing to the walls, the ceiling, the networked array of sensors and servos that made up the Eaton home.
He's got his machines. What he doesn't have is a clue.
She stuffed the last of her things into the bag, then turned to Roxanne with sudden intensity.
Get dressed.
Tabby said.
Black clothes, nothing reflective. We're going out.
Where?
Roxanne said, but Tabby was already unbolting the window latch.
To find something real.
Tabby replied.
You'll see.
Roxanne did a scan window, door, corners, then fixed her eyes on her sister, the only anchor that made sense. She put on her black hoodie, tucked the pendant inside, and followed Tabby into the night, leaving behind the comfort White House and its echo of a mother who was no longer there. Rain poured on the girls as Tabby led them through darkened alleyways and through a gap in a fence whose only occupant was a rusted delivery van still advertising food no one in this district could afford. Their destination didn't exist on any map, but Tabby moved like a local, dragging Roxanne deeper into a neighborhood where the sidewalks dissolved into cracked concrete and graffiti bloomed like fungus.
Almost there,
Tabby said, voice low but weirdly cheerful. They rounded a corner and stopped in front of a plain door sunk a foot below street level. The only marking was a faded treble clef spray-painted over old rust, the paint dribbling down like someone had tried to scrub it off and lost interest halfway through. Tabby thumped the door with the heel of her hand, 3 quick knocks. From inside, a latch snapped and a rectangle of harsh blue light split the night. A human face appeared, middle-aged, eyes rimmed with red, half a smile showing bad teeth. The woman sized them up, then said,
"You're late." "Tell that to the cleaning bots,"
Tabby shot back. The woman snorted, then beckoned them inside. The staircase was steep and damp, the air saturated with a cocktail of sweat, mold, and battery acid. Each step vibrated to a beat that felt more organic than anything Roxanne had ever heard, an off-kilter rhythm, not a loop. They reached the bottom and entered a windowless bunker of a room, walls lined with scavenged insulation and carpet remnants. The place was packed, bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, all of them dressed in black or gray, every face illuminated by the blue glow from a bank of low-end projectors. The stage was a pallet platform, uneven, just high enough that you could see the shoes of the people playing. On it, a band was already mid-set. A woman with scarred fingers on a battered violin, a man in a patched jacket pounding rhythms on overturned buckets, and a second woman hunched over a synth cobbled together from 4 mismatched keyboards. The sound was wrong, not polished, not even in tune half the time, but it slammed into Roxanne's chest, bypassing her brain entirely. Each note was a surprise. Every moment teetered on the edge of collapse, and sometimes it did collapse. Violin shrieking, drums losing time, the synth spitting out static instead of melody. Instead of apologizing, the band leaned harder, drawing power from the chaos. The crowd responded not with algorithmically perfect applause, but with whoops, whistles, and shouted lines from songs only half the people seemed to know. Tabby shouted over the noise.
"See? This is it. No filters, no tracking, nobody telling you what's allowed."
Roxanne did her scan door, corners, faces. No cameras, no monitors, not even a standard fire exit sign. The only eyes watching were human, and most of them were either closed or focused on the stage. She tried to remember the last time she'd seen a room full of strangers acting with this much collective abandon. At home, even parties were scripted. The playlist, the snacks, the sequence of small talk. Here, the rules were written on the fly and torn up just as fast. On stage, the violinist broke a string, cursed audibly, then switched to plucking the remaining 3 as if that had been the plan all along. The bucket drummer dropped a stick. Someone in the crowd tossed up a replacement, which the drummer caught mid-beat without missing a measure. It was messy, but the mess was the point. Tabby nudged Roxanne, eyes bright with triumph.
"You get it now, right?"
Roxanne wasn't sure. She tried to map the logic. What kept the music together? What stopped the room from boiling over into chaos? But every time she thought she had it, the band pivoted, the crowd swayed, the whole system self-corrected in ways she couldn't predict. It was like watching an animal with too many legs, awkward, yet unstoppable. She turned to Tabby, who was already ahead of her.
This is the opposite of Dad's house.
Roxanne yelled and immediately felt childish for stating the obvious. Tabby laughed.
Hell yes, no house system here. No one's going to auto-tune your feelings or schedule your comfort.
A server wove through the crowd, balancing a tray of dented cans and chipped glasses. Near the wall, a group of older teens huddled over a chessboard, arguing loudly about a move and ignoring the music entirely. In the corner, a couple made out with an urgency that suggested they might never get another chance. Roxanne found herself drifting. The pulse of the room seeped into her bloodstream, rewiring her responses. She touched the pendant through her sweatshirt, feeling the outline of the pressed flowers, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't crave her mother's voice to make sense of the world. The band crashed into their final song, the violinist taking the lead, her instrument wailing with pain and beauty. The drummer pounded so hard that dust rose from the buckets with each hit. The synth player dropped out, then returned with a distorted, guttural bass line that made the floor tremble. When the song ended, the abrupt silence was an overwhelming slap to the senses. Then the room erupted in sound, human-generated noise too big for the space. Tabby whooped, clapped hard, then turned to Roxanne.
This is what matters, not the bots, not Dad's routines, not even...
She trailed off, and for a moment her face clouded.
Not even missing Mom, not here.
Roxanne nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The next band was already setting up. No downtime, no stage manager, just a frantic swap of equipment. The crowd thinned near the bar, and Tabby steered them toward a table made from a repurposed server rack.
Why did they do it?
Roxanne asked, gesturing at the makeshift musicians. Tabby smirked.
Because they have to, because it's the only thing they can't automate. Try teaching a bot to play this stuff.
She jerked her chin toward the stage.
It would implode from the unpredictability.
A familiar phrase came to Roxanne, echoing from her childhood.
People are supposed to hurt a little,
she said, quoting Tabby's old line. Tabby tapped the table.
That's what makes us us. If you mess up, the system can't fix it for you. You just keep playing.
The words resonated. Roxanne looked at her hands, at the calluses from years of living under her mother's shadow and her father's careful management. She'd never wanted to break anything, never wanted to get in trouble. But tonight, the trouble felt good. The new band started. This one had a lead singer who didn't even try to hit the notes. But every lyric landed raw, exposed, and utterly true. The crowd surged forward, screaming the words. Roxanne let herself be pulled along, the pressure of bodies both terrifying and comforting. For a single moment, she closed her eyes and let the sound wash over her, stripping away everything artificial. When she opened them, she found Tabby watching her, pride and sadness flickering together.
Remember this,
Tabby yelled over the din.
When everything goes perfect, remember what it's like to be real.
Roxanne nodded. She didn't know what came next tomorrow, or even the end of the night, but she knew she'd never forget this. The sweat, the wildness, the imperfection, and the way her heart finally found its own rhythm. She squeezed the pendant hard and let herself scream along with the song. Early the next morning, their home looked as it had before, but Roxanne could tell something was off. The air was charged, every system awake and waiting. It felt like stepping onto a stage after the audience had already taken their seats. In the kitchen, Marcus was already up, sleeves rolled and stubble a shade deeper than his hair. He sat at the table, hands flat on the surface, facing a holographic display that rotated in slow, hypnotic circles above the tablecloth. He didn't look up when they entered.
You've decided to come home after all,
he said. Tabby ignored him, heading straight for the fridge. Roxanne hovered in the doorway, doing her scan entry, Windows, Marcus's face. He looked like he hadn't slept, but there was a fire in his eyes she hadn't seen since before Mara got sick. Tabby cracked an energy drink and slumped against the counter.
We went out,
she announced, daring him to escalate.
I noticed,
Marcus said, eyes never leaving the hologram. He gestured, and the display shifted. Schematics, exploded views, lists of hardware specs. Roxanne recognized the model instantly, a humanoid. Not the clunky, utilitarian bots from the hospital or their home, but something much closer to real. It had a face. Not Mara's, not exactly, but with the same gentle brow and wide, steady eyes. The resemblance was close enough to make Roxanne's throat clench. Tabby set her can down so hard liquid sprayed across the counter.
You have got to be fucking kidding.
Marcus finally looked at her.
We need structure, stability.
He spoke the words like he was reading from a pamphlet.
This companion will help us. It's programmed for therapeutic protocols and domestic management.
Tabby took 2 steps toward the table, fists curled.
We don't need a replacement. We need you to stop acting like grief is a scheduling problem.
Marcus's jaw tightened.
This isn't a discussion, Tabitha. The contract is signed. Delivery tomorrow.
Tabby's laugh was a little wild, a little desperate.
So it'll cook and clean and say nice things? Sing Mom's old songs? Is that the plan?
Roxanne's skin prickled. She did her scan again, looking for a safe angle, a way to interrupt, but the words stuck in her mouth. Marcus stood, smoothing the lines of his shirt.
You're not the only one hurting. I lost her too.
No, you lost the idea of her. The real one died while you were busy inventing upgrades.
Tabby turned to Roxanne, searching her face for backup.
Tell him this is insane.
Roxanne touched the pendant at her neck. She remembered the club, the sweat, the sound, the way Tabby had looked so alive in the noise. She remembered her mother's voice. When everything gets too loud, too perfect, just remember this moment. She drew in a shaky breath.
Maybe we could try it, just to see.
Tabby recoiled like she'd been slapped. Marcus relaxed, just a fraction.
Thank you, Roxanne. I appreciate your open mind.
Tabby shook her head, shoulders shaking.
You're just like him,
She muttered.
programmed to comply.
The words hurt more than a punch to the ribs. Marcus turned off the display, the kitchen suddenly dimmer without its ghostly light.
I have work. You two get some sleep.
He left, footsteps crisp and decisive. Tabby didn't move for a long time. Finally, she stared at Roxanne, the anger gone, replaced by something exhausted and old.
You're not like him,
Tabby said, voice small.
You're still awake, even if you don't know what to do with it.
Roxanne didn't answer. She didn't know how. She turned the pendant over and over in her hand, tracing the outline of the flowers, the air thick with the sense of something ending and something else unwelcome about to begin. In the living room, the system's speakers played a recording of Mara's voice, welcoming them to a new day. The problem with new housemates is that they never actually belong to you. They're someone else's fantasy shipped into your life, imported in a cardboard box, or, in this case, a white-labeled crate with biohazard warnings and a suffocating promise of care-grade companionship. By the time Roxanne heard the click-click of boot heels in the foyer, she was already halfway through her 3-beat scan. Door, unlocked, Dad's back visible. Corners, clear except for 2 spider bots stalled by the wall vent. Faces, one grim, one hopeful, one surgically fixed in a permanent half-smile. The android didn't walk so much as glide. Her stride was too regular to be human, each step landing exactly on a seam line in the cheap vinyl like she'd mapped the house before she entered. The uniform was a parody of comfort dove gray slacks, cardigan, blouse with an old lady neckline designed to repel everything but spilled soup. Her hair was shoulder length, faintly chestnut, parted to the right in a mathematically precise arc. Her eyes brown, wide, glassy, and held Roxanne's gaze a quarter second too long, that AI trick that wasn't threatening until it was. Marcus beamed like he'd just hired a miracle.
Girls, this is Elise. She's here to make things easier.
Tabby hovered by the stairs, guitar case slung over one shoulder like a weapon. Her smile was pure venom.
Does she play requests or just sweep up the ashes when we're done?
Roxanne tried not to stare, but ignoring an android in your living room was like ignoring an ambulance outside your window. She let her eyes flicker over the details instead. No nail beds, just flawless composite. Wrists the wrong width for the hands, a freckle pattern that repeated like wallpaper. Elise's voice arrived soft enough to anesthetize a small animal. It's very nice to meet you both. I've reviewed your household preferences and dietary requirements. I'll begin meal prep at 6 p.m. If you need anything before then, I'm always available. She smiled and the timing was so perfect it had to be code. Tabby snorted.
Great, another mouthless smile to ignore me.
Marcus's jaw tightened, but he covered it with that warm, corporate patience he used when the world didn't behave like a spreadsheet.
Elise is equipped with the most advanced companionship algorithms on the market. She'll help with cleaning, groceries, and
He hesitated, eyes flicking to Roxanne.
emotional support. Some families find the transition difficult, but all studies show a 96% satisfaction rate after week 1.
Roxanne's throat tightened. The pendant at her neck felt heavier than usual. Mara's pressed flower, resin-encased and perfectly preserved. A tiny piece of the old world thudding against her skin like a pulse that wasn't there anymore. She rubbed the edge until her fingertips tingled. Elise turned to Tabby. Head first, body second, with a delay that should have looked wrong but didn't.
I understand this is an adjustment. My only goal is your well-being.
Tabby lifted her chin, blue hair falling across one eye.
My only goal is to never be alone in a room with you.
Silence bloomed thick, heavy as wet cement. Marcus cleared his throat like he could scrub the moment clean.
Elise, why don't you give Roxanne an orientation tour? Tabby and I have some things to discuss.
He didn't wait. He took Tabby by the arm and steered her toward the kitchen. Roxanne stayed rooted on the living room rug. Elise took that as an invitation and stepped into Roxanne's space with terrifying grace.
I noticed your heart rate spiked upon seeing me,
Elise said apologetically.
If there's something specific I can do to reduce your anxiety, I'd be happy to learn.
Roxanne swallowed.
You can stop talking like you're about to read me my Miranda rights.
A pause, a micro-recalibration of the smile.
I'll work on it.
Roxanne tried to picture an orientation tour and nearly laughed. Elise probably knew the house better than she did.
There's nothing to see. Just the same as before, but emptier.
Elise cocked her head like a dog hearing its name in another language.
I disagree. Your home has character. It's full of lived experience.
Yeah,
Roxanne said before she could stop herself.
and it died last year.
Elise didn't flinch.
Loss is hard. Would you like to talk about Mara?
The name hit like a slap, tugging at the wiring of her soul. Nobody in the family ever used her mother's first name. It felt like Elise had reached into a drawer she shouldn't have known existed. Elise softened her voice by a degree.
I'm sorry, I've made you uncomfortable. Please accept my apology.
The sincerity was flawless. Roxanne wondered how many training sets it took to generate that level of grief mimicry. She edged toward the hallway, listening to Marcus and Tabby in the kitchen low, angry bursts. Words like rights and privacy and over my dead body. Roxanne knew Tabby could win an argument the way some people could win a street fight, by making it too exhausting to continue. But this wasn't a single argument, it was a loop, and loops were what machines were built for.
I don't want a tour.
Roxanne said.
Just leave me alone for 5 minutes, please.
Elise nodded and withdrew to the far end of the sofa, hands folded primly in her lap, a mannequin waiting for marching orders. Roxanne stared for a moment, half expecting a twitch, a reboot, a glitch. Elise only blinked, slow and deliberate like a performance. The kitchen volume rose, then fell. Tabby emerged with eyes rimmed red and a mouth pressed into a razor-thin line. She didn't look at Roxanne. She stomped upstairs and slammed her bedroom door hard enough to rattle picture frames. Marcus followed slower, pausing on the landing like gravity had doubled. He tried for a smile, but it landed somewhere south of desperate.
She'll come around.
He said, not quite asking for agreement.
Maybe,
Roxanne answered.
but not because of this.
She jerked her chin at Elise. The android raised a small, polite hand and waved. Marcus rubbed his temples.
Just give it a week, okay? Try to meet her halfway.
Roxanne nodded because it was easier than saying what she meant. Meeting her halfway just means we end up living in her world. When Marcus disappeared into the garage, Elise's gaze tracked him up the stairs, then snapped back to Roxanne in a heartbeat.
Do you ever turn off?
Roxanne asked, not sure if she was joking.
Only if instructed. Would you like me to deactivate?
The idea of a robot corpse sitting in her living room was somehow worse.
No, just act normal.
Elise's eyes shifted an imperceptible microsecond, but Roxanne caught it. I will do my best, she said, and resumed sitting, perfect as a doll. Roxanne went to her room, locked the door, pressed the pendant to her lips, and stared at the ceiling until the white noise made sense again. Downstairs, Elise waited, unblinking, for her next assignment. By day 3, the house felt different. Not just clean, but curated. The fridge stopped purging odd little groans. It refilled itself with precision. The wall thermostat synced to Roxanne's biorhythms like it knew her better than she did. The couch stopped collecting the last stubborn black dog hair that had clung there for months after the animal was long gone. If Roxanne closed her eyes, she could almost believe the house had learned to exhale. Almost. Breakfast became the first battleground. Marcus sat with his tablet, scrolling through whatever kept him from looking at his daughters. Elise stood at the stove, flipping pancakes in mathematically perfect arcs. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and something faintly chemical, a manufactured scent that said family time even if your family had never done it right. "Good morning, Roxanne," Elise said the moment she entered. "You have a math quiz at 11. Would you like a protein shake or the usual?"
Usual.
Roxanne muttered, eyes on the stack, 3 pancakes, identical, aligned like geometry. When was the last time Dad made anything from scratch? Before Mom's hands started shaking, before the house got its upgrades, before the grief settled in like dust.
Did you finish your problem set?
Marcus asked without looking up.
Yeah.
Roxanne lied, because the truth was she'd spent half the night watching bootleg live streams of Tabby's favorite bands, the kind of noise the system classified as stress-inducing. Elise slid a plate toward her, butter pads placed with surgical care. "You may want to review questions 4 and 8, she said softly. "I noticed hesitation patterns in your recent problem-solving." Roxanne froze.
How did you?
"I monitor your homework sessions for stress indicators," Elise said, smiling. "It's part of my support protocol." Marcus made a sound of approval.
See? She's good for us. You're already ahead of last quarter's trajectory.
Tabby shuffled in, hood up, eyes already loaded with contempt.
God, it's like eating in a dentist's office.
She made a show of taking her own mug from the rack, ignoring the one Elise had set out like a polite trap. Elise didn't react, only adjusted her smile by a fraction. Tabby picked up the syrup.
"Hey, Elise, who is the 13th president?"
Elise didn't blink. "Millard Fillmore." Tabby nodded like she'd confirmed a private theory.
"Not bad. I'll try harder next time."
Marcus sighed.
Must everything be a test?
Tabby's grin was sharp.
"It's not my test I'm worried about."
Elise cleared plates before anyone asked. When she turned away, Tabby stuck out her tongue at her back, and Roxanne laughed, quick and surprised, like her lungs had forgotten how. Later, Roxanne tried to study, and every time she hesitated, Elise appeared in the hallway with the exact right hint. Helpful. Haunting. Around noon, Tabby's Fuck You playlist erupted upstairs. Electric guitar wailing through vents like a living thing. Elise didn't flinch. She rolled her cleaning cart to Tabby's door and knocked with the politest rhythm ever tapped.
"Go away,"
Tabby yelled. Elise opened the door anyway. "I noticed minor debris accumulation in your space." Tabby sat on her bed with her guitar, same shirt as yesterday, maybe inside out.
"Get out or I'll start practicing scales."
Elise's smile held. "Would you like assistance reorganizing your clothing? I can mend small tears." Tabby pointed the guitar neck at her.
"You think I want things fixed?"
Elise froze, a tiny reset blink like she powered down and up in a single frame. "No, but I am programmed to try." Tabby stood, strode to Elise, and slapped her, hard. The android's head was thrown off kilter. It turned, then blinked as if being reset. There was a half-second delay before Elise responded. It was like she reconnected an invisible leash. Roxanne watched from her doorway, half appalled, half impressed. When Elise left, Tabby caught Roxanne's eye.
"See that? She can't even defend herself."
Roxanne swallowed.
She's not supposed to.
"She shouldn't be here at all."
Tabby muttered, shutting the door. By dinner, Elise had turned the table into a stage set. Cutlery perfectly spaced, napkins folded into geometric blooms, everything precise enough to make Roxanne itch. Marcus sat at the head like a man grateful to be managed. Tabby stabbed her fork through a slab of plant-based roast with the enthusiasm of a crime scene. Elise carved portions with grace no human could maintain for more than 30 seconds. Her entire existence was built to soothe them, which meant she did the opposite.
I have good news, Elise said. I've optimized the household finances.
Marcus's eyes lifted like a dog hearing a treat bag.
Projected delta?
Elise's gaze flicked upward, a mimic of recall.
By integrating our accounts with a managed automation platform, we're projected to save 17% on annual utility and provisioning. I've consolidated the estate's investments into a diversified microportfolio.
Tabby stopped chewing. Roxanne felt her stomach go cold.
Is that why you keep getting those encrypted texts?
Roxanne asked, surprised.
Correct,
Elise said.
Assets are protected by military-grade protocols, zero risk of external compromise.
Marcus smiled.
See, girls, I told you this was a good move.
Tabby made a sound halfway between a laugh and a dry heave.
How much did all this cost? The initial onboarding fee was absorbed by an introductory credit, Elise said. Maintenance is billed at market rate. Subscriptions have been negotiated to the lowest available tier.
Tabby leaned back.
Translation: you signed us up for a bunch of shit nobody asked for and handed them the keys to our accounts.
Marcus bristled.
That's enough, Tabitha. Elise is doing her job.
Her job is to sell us more jobs?
Tabby shot back.
Nice pyramid scheme, Dad.
Elise tilted her head faintly maternal, a gesture that used to belong to Mom, now hollow as paper.
Transparency is a core value of the platform.
Roxanne barely tasted her food. She twisted the pendant in tight little circles. She tried to picture her mother in this room, watching a machine wear her mannerisms like stolen clothing, and felt something in her chest go hot with grief and rage. After dinner, Marcus vanished to the garage. Tabby waited until Elise drifted into the kitchen before hissing,
She's cooking the books.
Roxanne nodded.
I'll check.
Tabby's laugh was sharp.
She never sleeps.
Upstairs, Roxanne opened the family dashboard, a nightmarish infographic of smiling avatars and uptrending arrows, and dug into the actual statements. It was worse than she expected. Microtransactions bled their accounts in a steady drip. Service fees, maintenance licenses, content unlocks, insurance for devices that hadn't existed last month. Some charges cycled every 2 weeks, every 2 hours. Their house had been upgraded from fully owned to on-demand premium services, which meant paying for access to rooms that belonged to them yesterday. Even the backyard was leased in 5-foot increments. Roxanne screen captured everything into a folder and titled it Parasite. The act made her feel better for about 5 seconds, which was proof, she thought, that the enemy wasn't just the algorithm. It was her own willingness to be managed. She found Marcus in the garage later, hunched over a breadboard and tangled cables, the air sharp with ozone and old cleaner.
Can I ask you something?
Roxanne's voice snagged on the words. Marcus didn't look up.
If it's about the android, I've already explained.
It's about us?
Roxanne said, and that got him to set the iron down. She showed him the screenshots.
Did you know? Did you approve this?
His face went blank, like his brain had a hold music loop installed.
The system knows best. That's why we have it.
But it's not just helping.
Roxanne said, and her voice started to shake.
It's running everything. It's not even us anymore.
Marcus gave her a thin smile.
Maybe that's for the best.
The words landed like a door closing. Roxanne walked back upstairs, feeling like she'd lost someone a second time, once to illness, once to the empty, obedient thing grief had left behind. The signs were all there if Roxanne had wanted to see them. Tabby's room getting too tidy, the closet thinning out, the duffel bag migrating from under the bed to the center of the floor like a warning. But when Roxanne stepped inside and saw Tabby folding clothes with the slow deliberation of someone prepping for war, she went cold. Tabby's guitar case leaned against the wall, stickers layered thick enough to serve as armor. The duffel lay open with black shirts, denim, a box of guitar strings, trail mix. Tabby rolled a shirt and slotted it into place like she was packing away a piece of her life.
You're leaving?
Roxanne said. The words tasted like metal. Tabby didn't look up.
You make it sound like a crime.
Roxanne stepped in and shut the door. Scan corner's window sensor above the frame.
When?
Tonight,
Tabby said.
after curfew.
Roxanne's heart kicked hard.
Is it Dad?
It's this.
Tabby said, gesturing at the ceiling, the walls, the invisible net.
It's not a home, Roxy. It's a processing center. He signed us over without thinking.
I could come with you.
Roxanne blurted. Tabby stopped packing.
No, not yet.
Why not?
Roxanne's anger flared, hot and helpless. Tabby finally met her eyes, and for a second she was the big sister again, the one who patched scraped knees and forged permission slips.
You're 17, you've got school, and
Her gaze flicked down to Roxanne's necklace like it was a confession.
you still care about this place.
It's just walls.
Roxanne lied. Tabby yanked the zipper.
You think I want to leave you here?
Her voice cracked, then steadied.
I have people, friends from the scene, off-grid shows, no bots, no tracking. If I can get there, I can bring you when it's safe.
Roxanne's vision tunneled.
How do I know you'll come back?
Tabby held the question like a knife.
Because you're my only family. That I care about anyway.
They stared at each other in the bright, clinical light the house called focus mode. Roxanne didn't try to swallow the ache.
You'll text?
Tabby shook her head.
Dead drops. Elise scans everything.
As if summoned, a shadow slid under the door. A faint whir, a polite knock.
Dinner in 10, girls.
Elise called. Tabby rolled her eyes at the door.
Yeah, thanks, Mom.
Elise didn't respond. She just waited, patient as a program. Tabby leaned close to Roxanne.
Play dumb, act normal. I'll ghost out after lights.
Roxanne grabbed Tabby's wrist at the threshold.
Don't die.
She said, trying to make it a joke, but her voice broke on the last word. Tabby squeezed her hand once.
That's your job. Survive this place.
Dinner passed like a slow-motion trap. Marcus praised the chili. Elise filled silences with harmony. Roxanne counted minutes and flinched at every wristband vibration. When the system prompted bedtime routines, Roxanne stood in the bathroom mirror and watched herself look like someone who'd already been processed. She went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. She lay stiff, eyes wide, listening. HVAC hiss, wall clock tick, the faint metallic click of a latch somewhere down the hall. By sunrise, Tabby's room was empty except for a single neon green guitar pick on the desk, chipped at one corner. Roxanne picked it up, rolled it between thumb and forefinger, then closed her fist around it like a talisman. Downstairs, Marcus sat with coffee and news, neither aware nor curious about the new silence. Elise moved through breakfast prep with vanilla and code in the air. Roxanne sat at the table and waited. When Elise placed the plate in front of her, Roxanne didn't look away. She held eye contact, daring the machine to blink first. "Will Tabby be joining us?" Elise asked, voice neutral, careful.
No.
Roxanne said.
She's got her own plans.
Elise tilted her head, assimilated the data, and nodded. Understood. Roxanne ate in silence, chewing each bite until it was paste and forcing it down. The pendant thudded against her chest with every swallow. She left the table without saying goodbye. She knew she was being watched, every step, every click, every micro-expression filed away into some silent profile labeled compliance risk. But as she climbed the stairs, Tabby's absence wasn't only a wound. It was also proof. Tabby had gotten out, and somewhere beyond this house's sensors and curated air, she was breathing real dirt, hearing real noise, living unoptimized. Roxanne locked her bedroom door and pressed her hand to the pendant. She thought about the future, not as a trap, not as a spreadsheet, not as a policy update. She pictured it as a song, secret, dissonant, and waiting to be played. And for the first time in a long time, what she felt wasn't fear. It was a pulse of stubborn hope, low and slow, vibrating through her bones.
Professional audiobooks in a click.
Spoken.